All right, fam, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this is Trusting God, lesson 29. Jacob walks in truth and love. Jacob walks in truth and love. And so this is a really interesting story for me because, like, I'm reading it, and obviously we know that Jesus is the light, and it said that he was the word that was made flesh, and he was filled with unfailing love and faithfulness. He was filled with this truth, and this love was light. And it was really so interesting to me to watch, to read this story of Jacob and literally see him walking in light in Genesis. And it was something that was very interesting for me seeing it, and it just it fed my heart and my mind, and the Lord was talking to me. He was telling me how Jesus was literally saying that God is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. And one of the people he said that he was the God of was he's the God of Jacob. He's the God of the living. He was saying that Jacob was living. Jacob was living. Jacob was alive. Jacob has life. And so it made me just dive deeper into when I was reading this story, just wanting to understand, Jacob as he walked in this love and this truth. I wanted to really just point out, like, why was he signified by Jesus to be this person that God was the God of the living, and he was one of those living people that he said that God was the God of. And so when I'm reading this story, I completely see why. I completely understand how God was his God for real at that time. He walked in truth and walked in love at that time. And it's crazy because it was so rare. But the thing is, as we know, there's a couple people in this Bible that aren't the same. Enoch walked with God and he was taken. He was different. Jesus talks about Abraham's feast in heaven. Abraham was different. It talks about Jacob being God was the God of him, and he was the God of living. Just said Jacob had life back in Genesis. He was different. And so let's talk about him a little bit, because this is a really good story. It's a story about how he found his wife and what he had to go through to get his wife, and there's so much love and so much truth in this story. It's really amazing. When I say it's amazing, it's really amazing to see in it's amazing. And so let's get into it. Genesis 29, 9 and 12. So while he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was shepherdess. When Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the mouth of the well and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted his voice and wept. Jacob told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. Okay, and so just so we have a little background on the situation. So this is Jacob after he had already listened to his mom and deceived Esau into getting the blessing, right? Well, Esau got angry and said that he was going to kill Jacob. And so what did Jacob do? His mom tells him, hey, your brother is planning to kill you because he's angry and he thinks that's going to console his heart. So leave this place and go to this another land. Go to my brothers, okay? Go to this land of people that I know. I want you to go over here. But he was literally telling him specifically, no, don't marry these people. It was so crazy. I was just reading this, and this is not a part of this lesson, but it's just really something good to know. Like, his mom was like, these women. He said these women in this certain camp. She said these women are literally the vein of my existence. Like, she said that she hated life because of them. And she said, what would I do with my life if you married one of them? And so she's literally begging him, and really ends up telling his father, Isaac, and Isaac ends up telling him, like, no, marry one of the Canaanite women, marry one of your mother's people, right? And so here he is being obedient, as Jacob was, because Jacob was a man of truth and a man of love. He honored his father and mother, and here he is. And so as he takes off, he finds Rachel, okay? And so when he sees Rachel, he really immediately falls in love with her. Look at him, he just starts going to work. He gets up and says, hold on a second. Who is this? Rachel, this shepherdess. It says, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the mouth of the well and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. He said, I'm going to work. I'm gonna show you I can be your man. I can take care of everything you got going on. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted his voice and wept. So, like, this man was, you understand, this man was in love. In love. Like literally, in love. Like, no, like, different than just like, my love for people. Like, no, he was in love. Like, no, this is the woman, and I can't leave her side. In love. And so Jacob told Rachel that he was a relative to her father and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. And so this is also very interesting because you understand that, Rachel, well, not Rachel, Rebecca was also taken from her family, and her brothers let her go. So Laban knew that Rebecca was given to Isaac, who was a blessed man. Okay, and so when his son comes, well, let's read about this. So he knows that his father's a blessed man. So when Laban heard the news of Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Then he related to Laban all these things. Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." He stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me what you shall your wages be." Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And so understand this is that at this time, Laban is very excited that Jacob is there. He's happy. He ran to embrace him because he knew this was a blessed people, a blessed man was coming to be with him, right? And he's like, "No, you're bone of my bone. You are my nephew. You're my nephew." And so he starts to serve him and work for him. And Laban's like, "Well, you shouldn't be just working for nothing. Like, what can I do for you, right?" And so now he's saying that, hold on. Now it's being obvious that, hold on, Laban has two daughters. The older was Leah, and the younger was Rachel. Now, Jacob had eyes for Rachel. And I also think that what's just so beautiful about this is that he kissed Rachel. But the thing about this in our time is so perverted. Because we see a kiss and we really think that's something sexual. Do y'all not know that the disciples kiss each other? Jesus kisses disciples. A kiss is not sexual. Sex is sexual. But in this time, he kisses her and he has this love for her, but this respect for her also. Because when he saw her, he wasn't trying to have sex with her. When he saw her, he wasn't pushing himself up on her. He loved her. He was happy. He cried that he met her. But he had patience though. But this is the part of this talk today about how Jacob walks in truth and love. It's so beautiful. How much he really loved not only this woman, but the people around. Like, he loved her. He loved the older sister. He loved them. He loved everybody in this scenario. And it's so, when I say it's so beautiful to see, it's so crazy because this love that God has for us, right? And you read it, you understand. Love is patient, love is kind, never jealous, boastful, proud, or rude, never demands its own way, never keeps record of wrongdoing, is not irritable, never loses hope, never loses faith, and endures every circumstance. Like, we understand that is love, right? But the thing is that when you look in the world, you really don't see love like that. But this story of Jacob is honestly a story that really gave me hope, but also gives me strength in my own journey, because I know what it means to walk in truth and love, and I see it in him, and it worked out for him, and so I know it'll work out for me, because all things work for the good for those that love him, and that's just the truth. And so as Jacob loves God and he's doing right, he's walking in truth and love, I want y'all to watch how this unfolds for him, okay? And so literally, so then here we have, so now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah. The name of the younger was Rachel, okay? And Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful of form and face. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful of form and face. Now Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than to give her to another man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. Now, this is so beautiful, man. I really love this story. This story was really touching my heart this morning as I reread it, because it's just so much love that, like, you really hope to see and find in this world. But I mean, it's also the love that we're called to give ourselves. And he has so much love for her that, like, literally it didn't matter. Time didn't matter. It didn't matter how hard what I had to do. He worked and labored and toiled for 7 years. It wasn't easy. Some of y'all go through 1 month of something not be easy, and it's not worth loving that person no more. It's because you don't really love them. You love yourself. Jacob didn't love himself. He loved her. And so you know what? He said, "I would do anything. I would do anything to continue in my love for you for the rest of my life. I would do anything." It says, Jesus says that there's no greater love than this, that one lay down his life for his friends. Jacob, this man laid down his life. This man laid down his life. This man laid down his life. Do y'all understand this? But then it says for him, it was a few days because of his love for her. I want you to understand something. Like, bro, come on now. Time, what's time? When you really love somebody, what is time? What does time matter? What does it matter for real? He said he worked for 7 years and it was like a few days because of his love for her. What is time to true love? What is time? The first thing it says is love is patient. Some of y'all have a time cap on your love. What is time to a true love? So then here we are. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my time is completed, that I may go into her. Laban gathered all the men of the place and made a feast. Now in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to him. And Jacob went in to her. Laban also gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid. So it came about in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served with you? Why then have you deceived me? And so this hurts. This really hurts, and I really feel his pain. When I say I feel his pain when I read this right now. But this the thing is that some of you don't feel this pain because you don't have the value of sex that God has called you to have over your life. You understand this is that sex is truly the consummation of marriage. Jacob went into her. And when he went into her, he's like, bro, what did you just do to me? What did you just do to me? You just made me one flesh with this woman that I was not longing to make myself one flesh with. What did you just do to me? And this situation is like honestly, not many things make me emotional, but this story makes me emotional for real. Because this man worked for 7 years for this woman. 7 years. And her father deceives the man into taking the wrong woman. And now, but this the thing is that Jacob was not a fornicator. So do you know what? When he had sex with her, he kept her as his wife because he wasn't a fornicator. I don't think you understand the difference between a fornicator and someone who's righteous is someone who decides to have responsibility for the sex that he has done in his life. A fornicator just has sex and just moves on with his life. But a righteous man has sex and lives up to the responsibility of being the husband he's called to be no matter what. And so although he was deceived, he keeps Leah as his wife. But this is such a sad situation for me because I'm trying to tell you, this man worked 7 years. 7 years. 7 years he kept himself chaste. 7 years he didn't have sex. And it wasn't even 7 years because his whole life he didn't have sex. His whole life. His whole life he wouldn't do it. His whole life. And he finally does it. He finally jumps out. And this, for some of us, he finally jumps out and gets married. And it's not the woman that he worked his whole life for. All because someone deceived him into who the woman was that he laid down with. That's deep. That's deep. And it's even more sad because this dad literally knew that it was Rachel. He asked for Rachel. And he literally said that, no, it's best that I give her to you than anyone else. He knew that it was Rachel. And he willingly decided to deceive him into taking Leah. Okay? And so let's keep going. But Laban said, it is not the practice in our place to marry off the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also for the service which you shall serve with me for another 7 years. Jacob did so and completed her week, and he gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. And so listen real quick. Come on now. Jacob has real love. Like, I don't think you understand that Jacob has real love. Like real love. That in this situation, he was deceived. But did he choose anger? No. Did he choose spite? No. Did he choose murder? No. Did he choose theft? Did he just go and get the woman for himself? No, he didn't. He chose love. He chose not only to love Leah, but he also chose to love Leah's father, and he also chose to love Rachel. He loved everybody in the situation. I don't think you understand how divine of a love this truly is. This is not a love that you can have as a selfish person, though. And so he decides that he does his work. He does not only so that he works 7 years, then he works another 7 years. Another 7 years for the other wife, for Rachel to be his wife. And let me keep going. So then, okay, actually, this is gonna be the last thing we talk about. So he works another 7 years for Rachel to be his wife. Okay. Now, a couple lessons about this. Okay, and because I'm not gonna go, we have some other things to talk about in specific to the truth and love that he walked in this situation. We'll go into that, but we need to talk about how, in this situation, how God used the darkness of Laban. Okay, he used the darkness of Laban for good. Because what happens? So Jacob ends up taking Leah, right? And then he has to work another 7 years, and he takes Rachel. But then you understand that the 12 tribes of Israel came from Leah and Rachel. So all their kids that they got were the 12 tribes of Israel that walked out of Egypt. That's literally the staple of the Lord's salvation to now. If you read Revelation, if you understand that for real, if you understand why Jesus said, "Go to the lost sheep of Israel," like he used this dark situation for great purpose in the world. And the crazy thing is that it was a dark situation done by Laban, but the man who's in the dark situation is Jacob, but he's righteous in it the whole time. He didn't do anything wrong in this situation. It's crazy because a man of flesh, right? Really, most men are just like, they just want a body. They just want somebody they can have sex with. They just want somebody that's going to be there, have sex with, going to listen to him. He wasn't that fleshly. He really loved Rachel. Then he said, you know what? Even if I have to be the husband of this wife that I didn't ask for, I'm going to still work these 7 years. I'm going to still be the man I'm supposed to be to her, so I can have the wife that God called me to have in you. And so this was a very, 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 I say, like, Jacob's love in this situation was so great because you know what, too? He didn't decide to just hate Leah either. He gave her children. He loved her. He took care of her. And so, we'll keep going into this. And this thing is, as it says later on in the story, that Leah was the lesser loved of the two, but he did love her. He gave her children. He took care of her. But obviously, he had eyes from Rachel from the very beginning. And so, this was such honestly, it was such a beautiful walk by Jacob. Like when I say such a beautiful walk, like this story was so beautiful by Jacob and how he did this. Like all I can say to Jacob in this situation is bravo, bravo, my righteous brother, for real, bravo. Because not a lot of men will step up and do what this man did, and he did it. He did what he's supposed to do, for real. And so this is a good scripture right here. Matthew 22:29-30 says, "But Jesus answered and said to them, You are mistaken, not understanding the scriptures nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. But regarding the resurrection of the dead," now this is the part we're here for. That first part was very powerful. I gave you the whole thing because I know how people are. That first part was very powerful. Y'all can go back and read that for yourself about marriage and the understanding of what it means to arise in the resurrection. But it says this. It says, "Have you not read what was spoken to you by God? I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living." So it's crazy because I like when I say, like, when I read the story, I was kind of in doubt at first about that Jacob really walked in this truth, and I was kind of in doubt because I'm like, no, nobody did that, but Jesus, like in this Bible, like nobody was really with the truth and with love like that. Like you see some spurts of truth in people in stories, and you see some people speaking up on truth, but you've never really seen like a true walk in a physical situation of someone really showing us divine love and truth. But we see it in Jacob though. And this thing is, Jesus actually verifies that no, Jacob did have life, because he says this, that by God, spoken to you by God, I am the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. That's amazing. Here we go. John 1:14 says, "And the word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory, glory is the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth." So literally, this word that was made flesh, it's filled with grace and truth. Was Jacob not walking by the word of God? Was he not walking by God? Was he not walking in truth and love and grace and faithfulness? Was he not doing this? I really implore all men should really learn from Jacob in this situation, because now Jesus did not bother with marriage, so he's not somebody you can really learn from in the physical circumstance with marriage. You can learn from his teachings of marriage and love, but in physical circumstance, if you're really looking at him, marriage ain't even on the plate, because he already told you that. He said it's best not to marry. Only God can help someone understand this. He understood that, so he didn't marry. But Jacob was his God, like God was the God of the living. He was of the living. Jacob was living. Learn from Jacob in this situation, because he truly walked in love and truth as a man of God should, for real. Now, I want to bring up this situation because this is oftentimes a hard thing, because the two things that we should learn from this situation is obviously the truth he walked by, but also the love, right? And so in this situation, in one of my scriptures, actually, let me see if I can locate it. Yeah, one of my scriptures did not make it on here as it should have. But, so one of my scriptures was talking about how Jesus was at the well. Okay, I can tell you the story. So this is in John 4, if you want to go find it for yourself. Jesus at the well, he's talking to this woman, right? And this woman comes to him, and he says, amongst many other things to her, to enlighten her on truth and who God is, and what it means to worship God. But one of the things he says to her, when he says, I'll give you this living water. And when he gives the living water, he says, go and get your husband. And she says, I have no husband. He says to her, you said that right. You've had 5 husbands, and the one you're with now is not your husband. You said that truly. And so by him saying this, he's trying to let her know that, you're saying that you've never stood up and said, I do. But I'm telling you that with your body, you have chosen to marry. With your body, you have chosen to marry. And so this is a good situation to learn from. And it was Amnon and his sister, actually. Let's read this. 2 Samuel 13:3-5 says, but Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, and the son of Shemiah, David's brother. And Jonadab was a very shrewd man. He said to him, O son of the king, why are you so depressed morning after morning? Will you not tell me? Then Amnon said to him, I am in love with Tamar, the sister of my brother Absalom. Jonadab then said to him, lie down on your bed and pretend to be ill. When your father comes to see you, say to him, please let my sister Tamar come and give me some food to eat, and let her prepare the food in my sight that I may see it and eat from her hand. So Amnon laid down. And so this is the thing, is that this man, Jonadab, it literally says that Jonadab was a very shrewd man. He wasn't good. But it's the thing in our lives. We take advice from people who aren't good. So listen, let's watch Amnon's death. Let's watch him walk towards death by influence of his friend who was shrewd and evil. So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. When the king came to see him, Amnon said to the king, please let my sister Tamar come and make me a couple of cakes in my sight that I may eat from her hand. Then David sent to the house for Tamar. And so take note of this. David sent to the house for Tamar, saying, go now to your brother Amnon's house and prepare food for him. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was lying down, and she took dough, kneaded it, and made cakes in his sight and baked the cakes. She took the pan and dished them out before him, but he refused to eat. And Amnon said, have everyone go out from me. So everyone went out from him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, bring the food into the bedroom that I may eat from your hand. So Tamar took the cakes which she had made and brought them into the bedroom to her brother Amnon. And so here's Amnon trying to get Tamar to cook the cakes for her, what she's doing, right? When she brought them to him to eat, he took hold of her and said to her, come, lie with me, my sister. But she answered him, no, my brother, do not violate me, for such a thing is not done in Israel. Do not do this disgraceful thing. As for me, where can I get rid of my reproach? And as for you, you will be like one of the fools in Israel. Now therefore, please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. However, he would not listen to her, since he was stronger than she. He violated her and lay with her. And so Tamar is speaking up in righteousness and saying, no, don't do this. Don't have sex with me. One, I'm your sister. Two, this is not a thing to be done in Israel, period. Whether I'm your sister or not, you do not violate another woman in Israel. You don't rape. We don't rape here. And so, however, he would not listen to her since he was stronger than she. He violated her and lay with her. So what does he do? He rapes her. So then Amnon hated her with a very great hatred for the hatred. So he rapes her and then he hates her. Then Amnon hated her with a very great hatred, for the hatred was with which he hated her was greater than the love which he had loved her. And Amnon said to her, get up, go away. So he has sex with his sister. And regardless of this sister or not, sister, woman, whatever, he has sex with this woman, his sister, and then tells her to get up and go away. But she said to him, no. So, whoa. This is a woman that just got raped. The woman who just had sex with her brother. She says no. Because this wrong in sending me away is greater than the other that you have done to me. Now, some of y'all don't understand this. Some of y'all really don't understand this. That the wrong in departing from someone you had sex with is much more wrong than the sin of having sex with the person that you knew was wrong anyway. So what does he say? He says no. She says no. Because this wrong in sending me away is greater than the other that you have done to me. It's more wrong for you to send me away than you just raping me. It's more wrong for you to send me away than for you to rape me. Yet he would not listen to her. Then he called his young man who attended him and said, now throw this woman out of my presence, then lock the door behind her. Now, this is really the issue with a lot of women. I'm about to teach you something. Most men who push you away and send you away and kick you out the door and say, I don't want nothing to do with you after they have sex with you. It ain't about you. It's that they have sinned so greatly that they can't even look at their sin to make it right. He couldn't even look at her no more. He hated her so much. And it wasn't because of her. It was because of what he did. So he says, now throw this woman out of my presence and lock the door behind her. Absalom, so this is, now we're going to go down the line a little bit, okay? Because obviously he kicks her out, right? He kicks her out, and so he's done this great, not only did he rape his sister, has sex with his sister, has sex with this woman, but he then sends her away, locking in his fornication. So not only is he a violent and aggressive man, but he's also a wicked man by standards of his sexuality and his upholdness of his fornication and sex. Like he's very unrighteous, very wicked, very unclean, right? And so here we are. We're going to go down a little bit. 2 Samuel 13:20-29 says, Absalom commanded his servant, saying, see now when Amnon's heart is merry with wine. And because it's the thing, I want you to understand something, that this is really pronouncing the judgment on Amnon. And if you know David, David was a righteous man and did not feel righteous in killing any righteous man or touching any holy man or any servant of God. He did not, because he loved the Lord his God with all his heart, all his soul, and all his mind. That's really how he felt for real. And so in this situation, this is his daughter. Also, you understand, this is his daughter and that's his other son. So not only is this a situation where you have a brother raping a sister, but the king is the father of the brother and the sister. The king is the father of the brother and the sister. Now, I don't know if y'all understand the parable nature of this, because who's the king, first of all? If you think about the king in our lives, who's the king? That king is Jesus, Lord. And we are all brothers and sisters, if you didn't understand that by now. But some of y'all don't understand, it's a greater wrong You may feel bad about having sex with that person, but you're doing a greater wrong by not living up to your responsibility and loving that person for your life as you should. Some of y'all really have this diminished value on sex, and it's so ugly to think that you can go inside of another person's body and then throw them to the curb. How evil is that? Go inside of someone's body and then throw them to the curb. I hope that you can see how evil and wicked that is. If you can't see it, you really got some things to search in Christ with for real to cleanse within you for real. And so then it says, see now when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I say to you, strike Amnon, then put him to death. Do not fear. Have I not myself commanded you? Be courageous and be valiant. The servants of Absalom did to Amnon just as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, each mounted his mule and fled. And so you understand that Amnon was put to death. Was put to death. Was put to death. Not, and I don't think you understand that he made it worse. Not only for the sex with the woman or sister. And this the crazy thing is that the sister literally says that just ask the king, and certainly he will not withhold you from me. He's literally saying David will not tell you that I cannot be your wife. He actually won't tell you that. But the reality is that the reason why most men don't seek God about the woman is because they don't want a wife. They just want to have sex with you and let you go. And so here he is. He's literally saying that she literally says the king will not know. Now I'm trying to tell you this: as men, you have to understand this. If you really seek God, if you're really seeking God, and the thing about this woman, she was proving herself to be a woman of God through her speech. Through her speech, she was proving herself to be a woman of God. And so he's like, she's literally saying, like, if you just sought God, if you just seek God, God will not withhold me from you. But if you just take me, you know you're doing wrong. Now, the problem with most men is they don't want to seek God to get their wife. They just want to take their wife. But you have to understand, we have to seek Christ. We have to seek the Lord. We have to come to the Lord first before we can take our wives. We have to. Because if you don't, it's not. It's going to lead to this situation. It's going to end up to just fornication. But when you seek God first and you understand what you should be doing, and you understand your responsibility, and you understand your love that you should have for that woman, it's different. You actually behave as a husband and not just a temporary partner like some of y'all do with your partners. But here Amnon is getting put to death. So the servants of Absalom did to Amnon just as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, and each mounted his mule and fled. 2 more verses were done. Okay. And so it says, now Absalom fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, the king of Geshur, and David mourned for his son every day. So Absalom had fled and gone to Geshur and was there 3 years. The heart of the king David longed to go out to Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Amnon since he was dead. The heart of the king David longed to go out to Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Amnon since he was dead. And so you understand that death is the penalty for actions like this in your life. And this the thing is that it's you know why the king who was David, which is who was the king of our lives, is God. I'm sorry, but you understand that like it said that oh, this is actually very perfect. It said in 1 Samuel that the sons of Eli did not listen because the Lord desired to put them to death. Hold on. I just found something beautiful for you. The sons of Eli did not listen because the Lord desired to put them to death. So now it says in this 2 Samuel 13, 11 to 14, it says, and as for you, you will be like one of the fools in Israel. And now therefore, please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. However, he would not listen to her, since he was stronger than she. However, he would not listen to her. Don't you understand the reason why? Why did he listen to her? Because the Lord desired to put him to death. And was he not put to death? And was the king's heart not comforted because he was put to death? Because it was the Lord's desire that he was put to death. Trust me, God would not have given David peace because we know where peace and distress come from. Zephaniah 1:17 said the Lord sends distress on men because they have sinned against the Lord. And so David's heart would not be comforted. It would not have peace if his mentality of Amnon's death was not correct. No, Amnon was supposed to die. The Lord desired his death. And David was comforted in his heart. He had peace because Amnon got what he was supposed to get from God from that situation. Deep. Very deep. But you have to understand that the reason why people don't listen to righteousness is because the Lord desires them to be put to death. Oh my God, this story, there was so many lessons in this story. I love it. I just love doing it with you. But now let's talk about this last slide and we're done, okay? So Jacob's love, though. We just talk about the truth that he walked in. And how he did not deny Leah. He did not deny Rachel. He took Leah. It wasn't the woman he wanted, but he sent her away. No, he didn't because he was righteous. He walked in truth. But here we are in 1 Corinthians 13:47. And here we are, we got what love is. And Jacob truly walked in this. Love is patient. Love is kind, is not jealous. Love does not brag and is not arrogant. Does not act unbecomingly. Does not seek its own. Is not provoked. Does not take into account a wrong suffered. Does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoice with the truth. Bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. This is literally Jacob. Jacob was so patient. He was so kind in the situation. He was never jealous. He didn't brag. He wasn't arrogant. He did not act unbecomingly. He wasn't rude. He didn't seek its own. He wasn't selfish. He wasn't provoked, or another word is irritable. He could have been very irritable. Very, very, very irritable because of what happened. He didn't choose irritability. He didn't take into account a wrong suffer. He didn't look at Laban, their father, and say, you've done me wrong forever, so I can never deal with you. No, he worked for him another 7 years. He worked for the man that just deceived him. He didn't take into account the wrong suffer. No, he moved in love and got the desires of his heart. Some of y'all don't understand that because you can't stop thinking about the wrong suffered, you ain't never going to get the desires of your heart. He didn't rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoiced with the truth. He bared all things. He bared all things. He worked for 14 years straight. He bared all things. He believed all things. He trusted Laban. And it's crazy because then he entered the same deal again with him and still trusted him. But what did he get? He got his heart's desires. He hopes all things. He never lost hope for him to receive what he knew he was there to get. And he endured all things. He endured all circumstances. It didn't matter. He was going to endure with his love. And so, family, I hope you got something good from this lesson today. This was Trusting God, lesson 29. Jacob walks in truth and love. It's such a beautiful story. When I say a beautiful story. And I just think about this so much because talk about loving your neighbors yourself, and I just realized that in to my deep core, for real, like on the truth side, like do I really want to have sex with somebody and they throw me to the curb? I don't. And that's why I realized why Jacob kept Leah, and I realized why He ended up he didn't seek two wives, but did he keep two wives? Yes, because he had love and he walked in truth. Jacob was a man of God who had life. I implore you to find life in your lives. So have a blessed day. We'll be back on here tomorrow at noon in Stronger in God's Word. We'll be getting into we'll be in Numbers. So have a blessed day. I hope you got something good. I'll be on here tomorrow.